Hey, welcome to the Taylor Take, where we talk about everything life, learning, things they don't teach you in school, and real estate as well. My name is Abigail Willis, and today we're going to be talking about, I think, something that pretty much everyone goes through at some point in their life, is buying your first home. Super exciting, but also so overwhelming and so much that I feel like people don't talk to you about when you're buying your first home. So I brought in Danielle.
Hello.
She is a producing agent on our team, and she's been in the real estate game for about 6 years now.
Yep.
So we're going to dive into everything first-time homebuyers should know, but probably don't. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and break it all down. It's a lot.
Yeah. So buying a first home, big deal. I feel like lots of people, have their dream home in mind, their Pinterest-worthy kitchen.
Of course.
So what's some things that people don't know or don't expect when buying their first home?
Good question. So really, a lot of folks skip the first step. And the first step is on the financial side of things. You really have to understand how much house you can afford, but then also what your buying power is. So I like to tell people the very first step is to understand what you want your payment to be, and then we back into that kind of what your price range should be. So like I said, that's kind of the step that people skip. They just assume that they can afford this $700,000 house.
Yeah.
And while they maybe can, they may not love the payment. So before you can kind of start picking out your kitchen and doing all the things, which is so much fun, you really have to get the financials in order.
Okay, gotcha. So I've heard the term pre-approved for a mortgage
Right.
thrown around a lot, but I don't know what that actually means. So you just walk into a bank and be like, hey, I need a loan for this amount.
For sure. Yes. Walk into the bank and say, give me all your money. Pre-approval. That is what we as realtors love to see that buyers do, but we're also willing to help you sort of get that done. So don't feel like you can't reach out to us before you get a pre-approval. But basically what that is going to a lender. You can go to your bank or you can go to a local lender that we have a ton of contacts that we would love to share with anybody who's interested. I like working with a local lender because they're able to offer kind of local level customer service, and they're also able to get a little more competitive with rates. But that's a topic for another day. You want to reach out to that lender. What they're going to do is sort of an analysis of your financial situation, your income, how much debt do you have, what does your credit score look like, things like that, to see how much money they're willing to lend you, right? They kind of do a risk analysis of you. Once they tell you how much it is, then it's on you to determine, okay, how much am I really willing to pay for my housing payment on a monthly basis, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, you might get approved for $600,000-$700,000, but you might love the payment of like a $400,000 house. So there's a lot that goes into that, and the lender is really great on running real-time numbers to give you exactly like, hey, this house at today's rate will look like this payment. So that can be really helpful too in the pre-approval process.
Okay, gotcha. So don't start looking until I have my pre-approval.
Yes,
that's good to know.
That can be hard.
So once I have that kind of figured out, how do you even begin to know what kind of house you want? I feel like that's so much to think about.
It is. I mean, there's a lot that goes into your wants and needs in terms of where you want to live. I like to tell people to make two lists. One list of things that you need in a home, like bedrooms, bathrooms, home office, whether you need a big yard for your dogs, things like that. And then a list of things you want, right? Like a big kitchen and a tile shower and things like that. So we really need the list of needs, and that's kind of where we cast a wide net. A lot of times the needs and wants list will change throughout the looking for homes process. So as long as we cast a wide net, we can sort of narrow it down as we kind of get down to what exactly you're wanting.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So location-wise, is that like a big factor? Do I have to think about that or?
100%, yes. The two things that I like to tell people not to compromise on are location and layout. Unless you're going to Joanna Gaines it and just break down all the walls, the layout really of a home is not going to change. But location is just so important too, because you really can't pick up a house and move it if you love it, right? Yeah. So you really have to think about proximity to your hotspots, family, church, grocery store, work, all those things. But then also kind of future-proof it a little bit. Think about, what am I going to need in 5-10 years? Am I going to start a family? Is this neighborhood going to work for me? Things like that. So not only location now, but location in the future.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So once you have your finances done, kind of what you want in a house. Is it time to go look at houses, all the pretty
100%.
houses?
Yes. That is the fun part. I call it my doing phase, right? Like we're actually going out and doing the work to find your home. There's a lot, too, that goes into it. I like to tell people to do like a Google Street View drive-by because that can save a lot of time. I've seen as many as 60, 70 houses with clients. I've seen as little as one before we found the right one. So it can take some time for sure.
So how do you know, like, when you find the right home?
Well, it's got to check all your boxes or most of your boxes, right, from that needs list, which may have changed over the course of our doing phase. It's got to check a few of your wants at least, right, or have the ability to grow or you to be able to put some projects in place to make it what you want. But then too, I love it when you can feel the feels, right? Like if it checks the boxes and you feel the feels, like that's a total 100% win. Yeah. But I think too, there's an element of keeping an open mind, kind of setting your expectations of this. As long as this checks enough boxes from a location, layout, kind of what my needs are, I can always make it what I want, right?
Yeah.
So
then you put in an offer, right? And then you just kind of wait on that to be accepted, or
that can be a really stressful thing, right? Putting in an offer on a home. I go through all of the offer terms and what to expect with my clients way before we even start looking at homes, so that they can be thinking about strategy while we're kind of doing the doing phase.
Yeah.
And then when we do write an offer, there's so much more that goes into it than just purchase price, right? Most of in our market specifically, sellers are getting almost 100% of their list price. So there's a lot of other terms that we can work in that will be advantageous to the buyer, like asking the seller to pay your closing costs or making sure it's contingent on an appraisal, getting your home inspections done, like a lot of safeguards that we can kind of tag in along the way. Gotcha.
So that seems like a lot of back and forth, but how do you know if you're offering too much or too little, or if your contingencies are good?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So as your real estate advisor, it is my job to kind of run the comparable sales, make sure that you are making a smart financial offer, right? Making sure that it's within a range of what the market will tolerate. But then too, sellers can be a little bit of sticklers in terms of what they think their house is worth. So there's some risk analysis that goes into it. There's also a lot of negotiation back and forth. It's not just here's my offer, take it or leave it. The seller is going to come back and say, how about this? And then we're going to go back and say, how about this? And then it kind of goes back and forth. So it's not an overnight thing, not something that happens super quick usually.
Yeah. Okay. So offers accepted, and then you enter in the due diligence period. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh, so, fun buzzword, due diligence. Love it.
So do a lot of deals fall through at this stage, or?
It can happen. Yeah. So outside of the let's back up a little bit. So you have your offer.
Yep.
That's kind of phase one of negotiations. Yep. Then we're under contract.
Gotcha.
And that's really when my job kicks into high gear. Our team does a lot of the back end work on this, but getting your inspections, making sure that all of our contingencies are met, and that is what's called your due diligence period.
Okay.
Yep. And deals can fall through during this time, but it is our job to make sure that we kind of come to a win-win with the seller. So if an inspection report comes back and the roof is in bad shape, then we enter into kind of a second round of negotiations of, hey, we need the seller to come off of the price, or we need them to fix the roof, or things like that. So that's really our job, is to help you through that process. And we've got a great list of contractors that help kind of take the emotion out of that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense, but kind of scary at the same time.
It's a lot, but there's still reason to celebrate once you get your offer accepted 100%. For sure.
So, finances are good, offers accepted, the feels are high, and the inspection went good. So then the closing happens, right? So what happens at the closing?
You're popping bottles. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that does happen sometimes. At the closing table, it's a lot of paperwork. I will tell you that, especially if you are getting a loan. There's a lot of loan documents for the buyer. But the seller is usually there, and you get to meet them, which can be awkward or fantastic. I like to try to make it fantastic every time. But it's really cool. I've seen a lot of folks exchange contact information with the seller so they can kind of show them kind of ins and outs or quirks of the home and things like that. There's like one faucet that's kind of funky, and they're like, I just need to know how to work this. So it can be really cool. And then they just share stories too of like fun memories they have in the home. That can always be fun. But yeah, and then it's just time to celebrate.
That's so awesome. So after the closing, then you get the keys,
Yeah.
Everything, and then you just move in?
That is the gist. Yeah, no. Once you get your keys, you want to make sure your utilities are turned on. There's a lot of little details that go into it, right? But I'd say the first 90 days after you close on a home is really the buyer's doing phase, right? They're moving in, they're getting settled, they're getting their projects done. And there's a lot of other little things that go into it too, like making sure that you're on the right tax rate or making sure that there's other things involved. So that's where we also like to help out after closing. Just because we close on a home with you doesn't mean you're never going to hear from us again.
Yeah.
We're going to be there with you to help you be a responsible homeowner. We want your home to appreciate in value so that in 5 years when you're ready to glow up, right?
Yeah.
Then we are there to help you sell that home and move on to the next thing.
Wow,
So.
I would never think of anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for your knowledge. That's so much I would not even think about. So if you are thinking of, taking your first step in your real estate journey, please reach out to us and we will be glad to help you. And we will be back next time. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.
Bye.